Right, so growing up, you are taught a lot of things. A person is, like it or not, a large product of, their surroundings and environment, and, maybe even the child, not maybe even the childhood, who am I kidding? And, and their childhood. Uh, and, in my previous videos as well, I spoke about how a lot of this is not addressed, and how there is so much we don't know about all of it. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about happiness. Not even happiness. I'm probably here to talk about fulfillment, and your wounds. The wounds that you inherited, or whatever, they make it incredibly hard for you to see the truth. It's happened with me, and I'm sure it happens with a lot of people. We can think of a really successful businessman compensating for his feelings of defectiveness and whatnot with with all the money, all the fame, and maybe you own a successful club, and you're getting to hang around with the coolest celebs in town. And if you ask him, the brain is this remarkable thing, is just so good at hiding your wounds, maybe, that he's just gonna be like, yeah man, I'm having the time of my life with all of this. But and yeah, society does look at this kind of person as successful and happy and everything. But is is that really happiness? Are 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 the wounds even real? Are the wounds even a part of you? This quickly leans into like the philosophical junction of psychology and philosophy, I guess. You could say this with so many other things. All of my life, or most of my life, I'd wanted other people to come and rescue me. I mean, I inherently knew that I had my own blind spot. So all I really wanted was another Reddy Satvik, another me, who grew up in a different environment, with different blind spots, and the two of us could coordinate, and there's this delicate dance of seeing through each other's blind spots and fixing each other. But yeah, it always felt like I needed to have someone. I need to have a girlfriend. I need to be in love. And if I had gotten what I want, if I'd ended up with a girlfriend, or with this amazing group of friends, like what is now looked at as the hallmark of a life, a social life, having good friends, or having great people around you, maybe even being taken good care of, I don't know. But the ideals of society are this, right? You're expected to have a high paying job and move in these elite circles and connections, and all of that. And it's pitched as a successful life, a good life. And I think the best part, or the worst part, is people who are actually living the life are happy, and they genuinely do believe that this is happiness, this is the source of happiness. But maybe I'd have definitely been like that if I'd gotten what I wanted. If I'd got this loyal girlfriend, maybe, that would have just stuck with me, or another Reddy Satvik, basically. Or if I was more successful, or yeah, it's just basically the things I wanted. They are hard to attain. They were hard to attain, and only because of the knowledge of this failure am I here saying all of this. That my view of the world was I looked at the world through wounds. And and yeah, if I'd gotten what I wanted, the wounds would have probably, I don't know, the wounds would have been satisfied. They'd have probably gotten numbed. But is that really happiness? Would you call that happiness? Earlier, I'd look at people in relationships as this joyous couple. Yeah, so I got kicked out of that room. But yeah, anyway, I'd earlier look at these couples or this pair of husband and wife that are happily ever married. It would look, at least, I'm not saying all couples, but this is, if there's anything this channel should tell you, it's to not generalize. Uh, but yes, I look at these couples or people in happy relationships and just go, gee, they have it all figured out, or they must be happy, and they do tell you that they are happy, but are they just numbing their wounds? Because there is, it is all, it is all probably perspective talking, I am sure, but I think there's got to be a significant difference in the quality of life between a life where you just probably numb your wounds versus things, the way you interact with things coming from a place of interest and genuine curiosity, or what it means to be human. Another very very unfortunate thing that I see in today's society especially is, if there's anything science or the pursuit of knowledge to teach you, it is to show you all of this basically, and maybe even tell you that we know frighteningly little about all of this, and for every question you want to answer, every door you want to open, there's like 10 additional doors. Every question leads to 10 additional doors, and so on and so forth. So all of this education, if anything, is education, or this pursuit of knowledge is supposed to teach you, or maybe even humble you. But what we see these days is people, educated people especially, filled with arrogance and saying things like, "Oh, I'm educated, you're not. I have this PhD, I have this degree." And if there's anything that a PhD is supposed to make you, it's more humble. And that way, education has really, really, very largely failed most people. And this is a frightening. It's not even a possibility. It is a reality, because people in these high degrees are in positions of power, and they are in charge of how the world goes. Do you really want to leave the world to people who are probably compensating for the wounds with all of the degrees, all of the status, all of the money? Are they really what's best for us? I don't know. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is, what is looked at as happiness, or even for like even the people in the damn thing who are 100% sure they're happy, may not be happiness. It could just be them compensating for their old wounds. Having someone understand you're in a world of vulnerability is beautiful, I agree, but how the heck do you separate your wounds from the beauty of life? I don't know. I'm just 24. I'm gonna be 25 soon though. But you see all of this, and frightens me, dude. Frightens me about how little that people think about all of this. So, in one way, freedom and happiness is really to just choose things, maybe. No compulsions. No compulsions for anything. It is, you are choosing things probably, as opposed to wanting them. I'm not sure even if that characterization is proper, but it certainly won't be. Another example I can give you, that the things that most people believe is, you can go on trips. Not you can go on trips. You go on trips with friends to have fun, or trips are only fun with friends, or or this is that, life is meaningless without this, without that. Are are they like absolute truths, or are enough people in the society wounded enough to convince themselves and convince others? And because it's not just these people are wounded, okay, they transfer these wounds to, their offsprings, their friends, their whatever, and that is how much harder it is for people who have to kick out of this. And maybe even I wouldn't use the word enlightened, but coming to the truth basically of things. And I'm here saying so much about all of this, but it still feels like a frightening reality that I may actually need a girlfriend, or I may actually need a group of friends to have fun. But life isn't like that. Fortunately, you don't need friends or people, and there's a lot of things in life without people. People are like an addition at the end of the day, because there's water, there's animals, and there's so many beautiful things. And this is just a lens from my wound, and I'm sure somebody who's been wounded enough into loneliness would be scared of human contact, and to them it'll look frightening, human contact, and there'd be no beauty in human contact. Or back to the original example of people compensating their wounds with all of this behavior. What is really the right path? And it's not like, these views are strong. They will break someday. I mean, they probably haven't been broken so far, but people who could code 10 years ago were probably thought of themselves as these demigods. Or I'm sure enough people in the world thought they were special because they could code. But now AI could do that, anybody could do that, and suddenly what is so special about you is gone, like this. And now with AI coming soon, we're going to have to tackle these fundamental questions of what it is to be human. Like, I really don't know. The way society is structured, and they look at a garbage man as a garbage man. But really, I really don't know what makes him any less of a human, or or how any of it relates to his worth basically. And now I suddenly am in this identity crisis of, if, or rather, can I even really disrespect anyone? Because everyone is understandable, like it or not. A bad person is just probably wounded, badly wounded. People who kill, people who do all these bad things, and it's and don't get me started on how the world is dealing with, like the supposed bad things that are happening. Whenever an injustice happens, it is always debt to the person who did it. It's never let's understand the systemic issues that produce this person, or let's see how we failed as a society to give him the help he needed. And I want to get into justice, and how I think at the core of justice, the entire point of justice, the ones that probably we inherited, is to make sure that another innocent person isn't harmed the same way by the same individual, which would just mean confining this individual, not killing him, not getting revenge, not vendetta. And there's arguments about how how we want to use fear and intimidation to unmotivate people, and I'd argue that you don't want to go down that path because you're not fixing fundamental issues. But irrespective of all of that, irrespective of if you're if you're using fear and intimidation or whatever, the fact of the matter is you're still not understanding the situation at hand. You're using your own wounds to, I don't know, to deal with societal injustices, and that leads to very unfortunate situations, like the exact same thing happening over and over and over again. This is not something you see patterns of behavior in humanity, and history teaching is clearly not doing enough. They say those who, I don't know the quote about history, those who don't know the history are condemned to repeat it. But I'd argue that there's more nuance there. I think you not being aware of the patterns of behavior are you probably being doomed to repeat it. And I don't know. But ultimately I'm in this big dilemma of who do I respect or who do I not respect? Because most people seem to have this segment of people they love, people they hate, people they dislike, or people they feel things for. But is is that what the ultimate thing would look like? A person without wounds, would they just love everyone? I don't know. Anyway, that was that, and I guess I'm gonna see you around.